What do you mean?
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 That's the name of the channel. What do you mean with an exclamation point and a question mark?
Alright everyone, let's debunk a show before it even airs. And I actually haven't even watched the video I plan to play for you here, and I have already gathered clips to respond to what I'm about to show you from Channel 7, and so this will be interesting. Since I went through the effort of editing them, I'm going to include the clip from the Humanist Report, the Majority Report, and the Serfs, and we'll see together if I was correct in my anticipation.
I was 15 when I had my breast surgically removed.
It's the most controversial story this year.
Children are being told they should change from boy to girl or girl to boy from as young as 12 years old.
Thousands of kids are doing it and regretting it.
I've gone through a medical catastrophe.
And parents are being kept in the dark.
I believe our children are being lied to.
Is a generation being brainwashed?
It's a medical scandal.
But it's confused kids that are paying the price.
I was just looking for a sense of belonging.
News Spotlight, Sunday on 7 and 7+.
Oh yeah, the clips I got are very relevant. I pretty much didn't need to watch that. But before we get into them, I just should address a few things. Starting with how it starts with someone talking about getting surgery at 15 and then shows this on the screen. Now if we just take 2 seconds to think about it, there's no way she would have been able to get that surgery without her parents consenting. So no doubt that's how that would have happened. Or if not, medical malpractice is already a thing. But assuming the parents were consenting, because they would have had to have been for the surgery to happen, to then put this on the screen and say, parents kept in the dark, that's really fucking gross. And I can see exactly what they're trying to do here. The fear-mongering. I'll dissect it for you. You start with someone talking about getting surgery at 15, which they would have had to have had parental consent for. You say there's thousands of children, but then you put on the screen, parents kept in the dark. This here would have to be referencing policies in place for, let's say, students not being outed to families that could kick them out or worse. You know what I'm saying? But you put in the viewer's mind, there are surgeries happening to children without the parents being involved, somehow. You see how ludicrous it is? But that's how you fearmonger. That's the thought you put in people's minds with your 40-second clip. Oh, and to put this on the screen as well, a generation being brainwashed. And did you know, in the USA, there's a whole bunch of book bans going on, and write in the comments below if you know what else started with book bans and going after trans people. Moving on, the only way it would make sense to have this on the screen of asking is a generation being brainwashed, to follow it up with laws that are being passed in Florida, where it pretty much seems like you can't say you're gay, you have to say slavery was good, and you can use PragerU videos to teach now. You want to talk about brainwashing a generation? There you go. I bring up Florida for a reason. This brings us to the first clip I've got for you.
As Harvard Law's Alejandra Caraballo points out, Florida could not provide evidence of a single resident who regretted transition. This is exactly why they have to fly Chloe Cole into every state. They don't have anyone else, let alone anyone who actually lives in Florida.
See, that is very relevant because this person here from the Channel 7 preview, that's Chloe Cole. And so it seems like she's not just going from state to state in the US, she's going international now. Think about that. And she went to Florida to go give evidence for anti-trans laws, and they couldn't even find anyone from Florida. Florida, with a population that's probably 3 million less than Australia, I feel like that's important to point out. And you have to fly out Chloe Cole. Now her situation is quite concerning, and I feel like it almost deserves its own video, so I might just move on to the next point I want to make. Or rather the points that Sam and then Lance are going to make. And just a reminder, obviously, they're talking about something else, but I feel it is very relevant to discussing what Channel 7's trying to do here.
I have no doubt there was a raw figure of people that was a growing number of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a growing number of people who are transitioning. It is not a social contagion, as I've seen.
In the same way, left-handedness was not a social contagion once more people began to identify as being left-handed when the stigma had been lifted from that.
I don't think that actually, being gay was a, or being being an out gay person was a sort of like a, people decided to do that just because it was hip and cool. It's because society, the implications and problems associated with that. So just as in like they would report like subway crime was up after the pandemic.
Right.
Well, ridership was up.
Yeah.
And the relationship between crime and ridership did not change. To say without any context, there's a growing number of people who regret transitioning, you get a misleading idea that it is being provided to a higher percentage of people for whom it is not appropriate.
A whole bunch of other outlets would basically be like, well, we're just going to ask the question and platform everybody equally and show that there are many detransitioners who experience a lot of complications as a result of, improperly being identified as trans. And we're going to actually dedicate a lot of this discussion towards them. When it's like, well, if we look at meta-studies of this, it seems that less than 1%, according to one meta-study, of people who transition end up regretting it. So a less than 1%, that is what you were platforming. You are basically amplifying, putting a megaphone on that and treating it as if these two different groups have equal authority on the subject. That to me is, yes, 100% transphobic framing.
I would just like to point out that while Channel 7 feels the need to make a report about the very small number of kids that seem to have received treatment that they shouldn't have, I feel like they're going to ignore all of the people that now can no longer get treatment that they should be getting because of various laws that have passed across the United States. With the help of people like Chloe Cole, causing people to have to flee their state, move their family because of these laws. Alright, now I'm satisfied that I've debunked this episode of 7 News before it's even aired. Then I said I was going to upload this before it airs, so I better get to it. Alright, yeah, like, subscribe, thank you.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What?